driving, I'm sweating, and I just, as I opened my front door, blacked out. I've never spoke about this before, but yeah, that was a real dark time. As I'm walking up the steps to go onto stage, I'm like, right, all the work's done now. You need to fight. It becomes a competition to me. And as I step out onto stage, I become somebody else.
Do you think anybody can get into bodybuilding?
I love bodybuilding. I love what it does for me. I love what it's done for my family. I loved their determination, their discipline, their routine. It was my biggest fear at the time, is stepping on stage with my top off in front of everybody. So I wanted to see if I could do it. So people say, why do you still do it 10 years on? Because I love it.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
It's not a why do you keep doing it, because it's so ingrained in your character.
I had this retirement speech and then I won it.
Ryan Terry.
Everything I wanted to achieve, I'd achieved when I won that title. Yeah, you're worthy of being number one, like you can do this. Yeah, sorry, I was getting a bit emotional there.
But I do believe anyone can achieve what they want. I just don't see any limits at all.
Mine came from like body dysmorphia, so at the time it felt normal, but I'd be buy a pack of chewing gum every morning and that's what I'd eat all day. So I'd starve myself all day.
So the final question I've got for you, Ryan, is there going to be a 3-time? So today we are joined by 2-time Mr Olympia Ryan Terry.
Hello.
How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Now, we've did quite a few episodes of the podcast, and I wanted to bring someone the 100th episode special, and I thought, who better than yourself to do it?
I appreciate that, thank you.
I want to say thank you for letting us in your gym.
No problem.
Unbelievable place. It's the first time I've actually been down here, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
To see what you've achieved, what you've done, and to actually see something physical, because everyone can see the stuff online, can't they, and everything you've achieved, and you know, the people who've had the pleasure actually come and see you win and perform and stuff like that. But actually be here and see a real tangible business, it's absolutely unbelievable, mate.
No, I appreciate that, thank you. It's been a tough year, I must admit. We're coming up to a year of being open. A lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I dare say it was worth it, just because the members, the community we've built down here has been phenomenal.
Have you always been business-minded?
Yes. Or I'd say I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always had something going on. From the age of 14, I set up Terry's car washes in works uptown on from me. So I used to, at 14 years old, go and wash cars and stuff. And I always had a very work ethic, a very hard work ethic, should we say. My mum always taught me and instilled for me to work hard from the age of 14. So I was pot washing at night, car washing on a Saturday. And by the time I was 16, I was doing removals, house removals on a Saturday. I did pot washing on a Sunday and most evenings, and I had an apprenticeship plumber at the same time. So I had like 3 jobs when I was 16. So I was obsessed with work, shall we say.
Was it a money thing, or was it just wanting to be busy?
I always wanted to be successful, and I always put money with success, and that's not necessarily the right thing. But growing up, it was always a monetary thing that came across as being successful. So when I used to look at people I always used to look up to, like business owners that I used to work for, they were very successful because they'd done financially well. Later on in life, I realised that's not the case. But yeah, in the early days, it was definitely to do with like a monetary thing.
When you were pot washing and stuff like that, did you have, I mean, I can't say dreams of being Mr Olympia, maybe you did, but what did you picture yourself having that success doing? So
I was always into renovating like properties or just some sort of big renovation. So that's why I got into plumbing. And I used to also do, at the time I was 18, I was doing like night school in like joinery and bricklaying, only like small like DIY courses, but I wanted to learn every trade so then I could go into property developing. I was always into homes under the hammer. So that was my inspiration there. So I always wanted to have my own business, and probably had different aspirations like when I was younger. So from the age of 18, I was obsessed with getting my own house, my own car, having my own business, and probably skipping a part of my life because that's where I thought I needed to be there and then. But yeah, I've always enjoyed working. I'm not somebody who can just sit around and have a lazy day. My mind's always going, what's the next thing? What's the next project? And maybe that's my downfall at the minute. I'm always looking for the next thing. But it's served me well up to now.
What were you like at school, Ryan?
I struggled to concentrate. I was always someone who had to learn through like a physical aspect. So anything that was hands-on, I was good at. I could adapt to. But anything really like, say, maths, English, science, that sort of thing, when you sat learning from a book, that was always a struggle for me. Even to the point where when I was 16, Didn't tell any of my friends because obviously it wasn't cool to do stuff like that in those days. But I took myself off and did extra maths tuition on an evening. It was £10. I remember she was a piano teacher / maths teacher, and I used to try and do that because I was struggling to get a C, and I always in maths basically a C. So I was predicted a D, and I knew, and the only reason this was, and it's silly, was my sister got a C. So I had to. We were always. In anything we did, we were always taught to compete against each other. So I'm one of three. I'm the youngest of three. And we were always in a competitive household. So because she got a C and I was predicted a D, that was me losing. So, yeah, I was always very competitive in anything.
Were your siblings competitive with you as well?
I'd like to think they were, but looking from this standpoint now, I don't think they were. I think it was just one-sided. My brother was 2 years older than me. My sister's 3 years older than me. So I was always saw myself as the underdog and always like challenged myself to be up there. So if my brother was good at football, I had to be just as good. When he played for county, I had to play for county. When he was a gymnast, I had to play to do gymnastics in nationals, and swimming, exactly the same. I had to swim for nationals because my brother used to swim for nationals. So it was always, yeah, a competitive household from my standpoint anyway.
When did you first pick up a weight?
14 years old. So kind of my stepdad, my mum's boyfriend at the time, he was Mr Britain in the super heavyweights in Nabba. He owned a backstreet bodybuilding gym not far from here. And when I turned 14, that's when obviously girls come on the scene, you're a bit more self-aware, and I just became very body conscious. And around that time, obviously, he was running this backstreet bodybuilding gym, and yeah, it was apparent that I was becoming more and more conscious of the way I looked. So he suggested about training, and obviously, if I start to build my physical side of me, then the mental side will coincide with that. And yeah, I started training from the age of 14.
Could you see that when you were kind of picking up them weights and starting to train? Could you see you had potential? I know it's mad at 14-year-old, but were you doing it the right way, or were you just eating anything, just getting in the gym? And
so I was the opposite. So mine came from like body dysmorphia. So I thought I was way overweight, and I remember doing silly things at school where I look back and it was ludicrous. Where at the time it felt normal, but I'd buy a pack of chewing gum every morning, and that's what I'd eat all day. So I'd starve myself all day, and I'd put like a t-shirt on under my shirt and wear a coat in summer and stuff and try and cover myself up, not knowing why. And even to this day, I don't know what triggered that. But you look on my school photos, and even in summer when we're breaking up, I've got a coat on and stuff covering up. So when I trained harder and harder and harder, but it never really went away, that feeling of... So yeah, I always assumed I was overweight. I look back at the pictures and it's crazy. I was like,
it's crazy,
a beanstalk.
Ironically, the more layers you put on, you probably look bigger.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. No, exactly. So looking at where that mindset came from, I don't know, but that was kind of my way of thinking.
I wonder if it's the kind of need to impress people at that time as well. Almost that I don't want to reveal how I really look until it's impressive. I know that sounds mad at that age, but maybe that could have played into it. Yeah,
maybe. For me, like, I was never interested. Even now, I train in oversized t-shirts. A lot of people do anyway nowadays, but I've always trained in hoodies. I've never been someone, even though it's my job, I've never been someone who walks with the top off on holiday, even after Olympia this year. Not because I'm really body conscious and that I'm like scared of what people think. I've never been that guy. I've always trained in hoodies. I've always covered up, and it only became a job for me when the competitive element came into it. So I trained for 7 years before I stepped on stage, and it was just for me. So I didn't need anybody to know I was training. I didn't need anybody to see how big I was, and that's probably why I was covering up. I like the fact I used to be able to put a t-shirt on and no one ever really knew I trained, but for me, that was my outlet at the time. And I went from, when I was 16, I was playing golf at a high level, swimming at a high level, football at a high level. So when I transitioned into the workplace, obviously I couldn't play to a 6 handicapper at golf because I was working every day. And I stopped competing, in those sports. So I needed something to do. So when I was obviously weight training, that was fine for my mental health and whatever. But it's only when I was 20 years old and then competing came into it, and it gave me that reason, that why, because then I've got something to show for at the end of it. Even though it was my biggest fear at the time is stepping on stage with my top off in front of everybody. I don't know, I was somebody who worked on site, so my hair was scruffy every day, never really ever took a picture or anything like that. So to then step on stage with my top off was just mind-blowing. But there was just something telling me, I've got all these bodybuilders around me, because I was obviously training in a hardcore bodybuilding gym. I loved their determination, their discipline, their routine. So I wanted to see if I could do it.
You alright, people? Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Here's a random one for you. Most of you who are actually watching this episode don't actually subscribe to it. So just do us a favour, will you? Can you click the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode, hit subscribe, all that good stuff, because we go up and down the country to try and bring you the best show possible. We're not messing around here, so please just show some love, will you? You know what's crazy about that though, Ryan? It's the fact that, and I mean this in the most respectful way I can, like, you look like a normal bloke now.
Yeah.
Still, like, I know that sounds mad, but like, I could literally picture on a site.
Yeah.
And just walking around with your high vis on and all. I can.
Yeah.
And the fact that you said, like, it's frightening when you're on stage and stuff for someone who's kind of conquered them. Yeah. Would you say you've conquered that? Or, like, in terms of getting on stage and showing yourself off? Or do them insecurities, are they still at the forefront?
So I wouldn't say they're insecurities, but I am a nervous competitor, and that never gets easier. So even it was my first show in Leamington Spa, right up to my last Olympia, I still have these. I'd say it's a fear factor which helps me drive to get in condition, to get in shape. That's how I work from that fear of not being in shape and stepping on stage in front of millions of people. So that's always been a good driving force for me. But even backstage, I'm a nervous wreck. I play it cool and I keep it myself to myself, but yeah, as I'm stepping on stage, I can't explain it. Every time, like, my alter ego comes out, and it's an alter ego. As I'm walking up the steps to go onto stage, I'm like, right, all the work's done now. You need to fight. This is the last part. You need to fight, and it becomes a competition to me. And as I step out onto stage, I become somebody else. And I strive to be that person all the time. I'd love to be that person all the time. Maybe not a lot of people would like that.
Well, it's like before this podcast, I know you were cleaning all your sick up, weren't you? And it was like, and you were bad then.
Yeah.
We brought you around in the end, right?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
When did you realise when you were kind of younger that I'm going to compete? When was that point when you were like, do you know what, I'd give that a go?
So it was when I was 20. I remember feeling it because I hadn't had anything competitive in my life for a few years, and I need that pushes me. And like I say, people around me in the gym were all competing, and I just remember thinking, right, I'm going to pick a local show, and I'm going to compete towards it, or whatever, prep towards it, that's it, and just do it once, just to say, I've done it, I've tried it, and I can do it. I'm just the same as all these guys. If these can do it, I can do it. And I remember dieting down, didn't tell anybody. Again, I trained in hoodies, so nobody knew I was dieting. I didn't have anyone to help me. And I entered this show at Leamington Spa because Leamington Spa was the closest show to me. And I didn't realise it was the UK Nationals, which was a huge show. It was the one, like, drug-tested show of the year, and it was a big deal. We had a guy called Rob Richards. I don't know if you remember Rob.
No.
But so Rob was the Steve Cook before Steve Cook. So he was like top boy for Opta Nutrition. He was on all the front covers of Muscle and Fitness. He was someone I looked up to because of his midsection was unbelievable, phenomenal. He had an amazing body. And I just said to myself, instead of me queuing up for hours in an expo, I might as well step on stage next to him. And yeah, he ended up entering that show, which I was like, holy shit, this has become a big thing now. A lot of people dropped out of that show the night before, the day before, because they realised he was doing it and stuff. And I thought, well, I'm here now, let's have a go. And I beat Rob that day, and it literally just catapulted me right to the front because obviously he was a big name. So from me just wanting to do it once and just testing, overcoming a fear and just saying I'm going to do it once, to then obviously later becoming my full-time job.
When you beat Rob, did that, I know you still had respect for Rob, but did that change the way you looked at him? Like, almost like you're this person I've had on this pedestal, but now I've beat you?
No, I always had respect for Rob because, again, his work ethic in the industry at the time, and like I say, he was a lot further on in his career than I was, and I always still had admiration for that. So I've never ever looked at anybody, if I've ever beat them, that they're below me or anything like that. I've always see everyone as a competition. I've just got to, I think it's important. A lot of people, especially on social media, they focus on everyone around them and they give them your energy. Whereas for me, I've always just focused on my own goal. And it's weird because like, when people say, did you believe you could be number one in the world? I never used to go around saying, yeah, I'm number one, or, like speak it into existence and this and that. But I never didn't believe it. I never didn't think I could be number one at some point in my career.
I think that it's almost, to believe it is almost delusion, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I do think you need that. Like, I literally had a conversation with one of the lads when I was coming down, and I was in the traffic there, and the guy was like, "Who you got on the pod today?" And I told him, I was like, "I'll tell you, mate, because I don't normally share with who's coming up, because they go out a few weeks later." And I told him, he's like, "How have you managed to do that?" And I was like, "Mate, but like, in the way I look at it is, it's just people asking other people things."
Exactly.
Like, I'm massively inspired by you, and I followed your journey very closely. And
thank you.
I'd call you Mr. Tenacious. For how many times does someone go back at something before thinking,
or stupidity?
Do you know what I mean? It's almost like it's mental.
Yeah.
Really, that's what it is. But I know that in the kind of space that I'm in with video and stuff like that, like, I kind of look and think, if there's a particular person I want to work with in some way, shape, or form, it's just another person, and that's all it is. You can't get kind of clouded by this, but they've got this status.
Yeah.
But 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they might have been on a building site just like whoever. So,
and everyone starts somewhere. And, exactly.
But that's what I love. I love the fact that you're like that.
Yeah.
And you I think you're very aware of, how much, you were a plumber.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I always compare. Someone actually said to me recently, it was actually Chris Bumstead, because I always used to say to him, because we have quite deep conversations about things like not bodybuilding orientated, and it's on about your self-worth. And when people talk about like the value of something, like, and I always compare it to, but when I was a plumber, like, it took me 3 years to earn that, or when I was an apprentice, and I always still see myself as that person. But Chris, like, but you're not that person anymore. Like, you've earned the right to of value. You're in this space, so just remember where you are now. Not that you're above anybody, but how much you've achieved since being a plumber. And I still struggle with that even to this day. I still see myself, but that's a good opportunity because that's what I'd have earned. But is it a good opportunity? Because you're working your ass off for not a lot.
Yeah, I know. but mate, you could be in an office or something like that.
No, exactly,
Do you know what I mean?
I'm very fortunate. I know I am. I love what I do.
Do you think anybody can get into bodybuilding?
I think anyone can start bodybuilding. I think it's hard in this day and age with the genetics do play a part. Unfortunately, like people say, do genetics play a part? Yes, massively do. Without that, you can go to a certain distance. But if you're wanting to step on stage and be criticised and scrutinised, there is a level you're going to go to when genetics do come into play. So I still think you can be a good bodybuilder. I think you can make good money from it and make a career out of it. But if you wanted to step on the Olympia stage, because it's been going 60 years now, and every year, the standard just gets better and better and better. So I feel like anyone can start bodybuilding, anyone can be in bodybuilding, but to be a top 5 in the world, I think nowadays is very, very hard. I've witnessed it. Like, I've seen how much it's developed and how much it's come on from when I started. It's insane.
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it in what respect?
So, you're 2 times Mr Olympia. There's not many people on the planet who are ever going to achieve anything close to that. But they're still going to hustle. They're going to, dedicate their life. We understand it's quite a selfish sport, especially if you've got family and stuff. And I understand you've got to be on your mission, and nothing can kind of come in between that when you're dieting and your meals are working around your training windows and stuff. But if I was to say to you, you'll never become Mr Olympia, is it still worth it? The pursuit of it?
I think it's the mindset of somebody. So for me, I would say I had to know or had to believe in myself that I had to be number one. I'm not somebody who makes the numbers up. So if I'm doing something from a competitive standpoint, this was never meant to be a career for me. This was a competitive, and this was to itch my competitive side of me. So to say you wouldn't be number one, it's not worth it for me then, because I always had to be the best at whatever I did. And that's not trying to be cocky. It was just, that's how I've been bred to whatever I put my mind into, I have to be the best at it. So this was why 2 years ago, which is crazy to think 2 years on, where you just click your fingers and we're 2 years on and I'm 2 times Mr Olympia, but 2 years ago, this was the reason I started to set this up, the ball rolling, because I was going to retire, and not because I wanted to. I love bodybuilding. I love what it does for me. I love what it's done for my family. I love the consistency and the structure it gives me. But at the same time, I wasn't prepared to put my family through a selfish prep. No matter how selfish you try not to make it, it is a very selfish sport. And I wasn't going to put my wife through it anymore and my kids through it, because they're of an age where they're starting to see things that if I wasn't going to come out on the #1 spot. And last year I was the best I ever looked. I pushed myself so hard and I came 7th, like one of my worst places at Olympia. And that, I remember saying it after the Olympia, like I had a few tears. I did a YouTube video and just said, I think it's time to hang my board shorts up, because I'm not somebody who just makes numbers. I don't want to be a top 5 in the world. I want to know I'm #1. And I just feel like the division's changing now, where they're looking for something else other than me. I've had a good decade at it, as in competing on stage, and in that decade they haven't put me first, so I'm obviously not what they're looking for. And yeah, this was why I set this up. This is why I took on the British Championships. I took a lot on in my life at that point, and my wife said to me, like, do you want to go out on top? Do you want to do one last Olympia and give it your everything? Do, say, the politics, but do the work beforehand. So attend American shows, be immersed in it all for the year, and just see if you're, one last go. If you've done everything, you've ticked every box, just have one last go. I thought, right, okay. And that's kind of what our plan was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 Olympias ago. And that was why they didn't come out. So it was the first year, so winning my first Olympia title, none of my family came out. I said no to my wife and to my mum and to my sister, my brother. I said, look, this is going to be my last year, and I am somebody who overthinks making sure everyone's okay. I'm obsessed with, like, if they're out to support me, I need to make sure they're okay every day and stuff. So, and that's what it's always been like at the Olympia. Whereas I said, look, this is my last Olympia. I just want to immerse myself in it, be backstage and just enjoy being backstage, because it's the last time I'm ever going to do this, and this is something I worked hard for. So we all agreed that. had this retirement speech, and then I won it. So I went from 7th to 1st.
But you were gutted that they weren't there.
I know my wife was, when I rang her after, she's crying her eyes out. I was like, are you crying because you're happy, or are you crying because I've won it without you? And you're going to be really annoyed at me. But yeah, so that's why I had to go again, to make sure they were all there to witness it. And my wife, like Amy, she's been a huge support for me, massive rock through all of this. She met me just before my first Olympia, so we were together in 2015. And so she's been to every Olympia. She's seen all the ups and all the downs. She's been through it all with me. So I felt like I'd robbed her of that, because she deserved that. So
when you won Mr Olympia the first time, did it feel how you thought it would?
No, not at all. Yeah, it was, but that was my own fault, I think. So that part of my life, I haven't really spoken much about that, but that part of my life was really difficult mentally, because I'd taken so much on. I'd taken this place on. I had like 40 contractors on me constantly, every day. So I was project managing this. I had a newborn in the house. I was doing the British Championships, and obviously I was prepping for this show, and I had 3 or 4 other businesses where they were very demanding on my time. And I was living on 3-4 hours sleep. It was just carnage. I was training at 4 o'clock in the morning till 5:30, so, because I never wanted to not be there for my kids. So I'd always make sure I was home for like 5:30 in the morning, so I could wake them up, have breakfast with them, take them to school. I'd be on site all day. I'd nip off to do photo shoots and whatever, but I'd be back here on the tools, project managing here. And then at night time, I'd put them to bed, I'd pick them up from school. Me and my wife would like spend time together putting the kids to bed. As soon as they've gone to bed, on my emails, ready for the next day, and then I'd get to the gym for about 11, half 11, and I was training till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd get home, sleep on the sofa. So me and my wife became just passing ships at that time, and I became, like, what's the word, like homeless, really, because I was sleeping on the sofa. I wasn't washing very well, because I was thinking, well, I've got to be up in 2 hours to do my cardio, I might as well. So it was a real rough time. So then when I won it, nothing changed. I still had this to complete. I won it in November, but this had to be open in December, end of December, January 1st, sorry. And it was a building site. So I had 24 hours over there of being a king, and everything was just unbelievable. But then the next day I'm on a flight home, and then within, say, 48 hours of winning the Olympia, I was in a skip out here in the rain, back to brushing, and it was just carnage. And I felt really robbed, because something I'd worked all my life for, 20 years. I'd done it myself. I'm the only one to blame for that. 21 years of training, obviously 10 years of competing, and I had all these aspirations, like I'm going to do so much with the title, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I just didn't even raise a glass with my family, because I was that busy with other things and the next project. And I burnt out. So that January, February, March time, I was in a bad way. Didn't publicise it very well, or I didn't want to publicise it. Chris was quite a good help. Bumstead, he suffered with a few things that I was suffering with. So he kind of talked me through it, but yeah, just felt like imposter syndrome for the first year. So that first Olympia title, everyone was congratulating me and all these opportunities were coming up, but I couldn't. I didn't have the staff here, so I was juggling a lot. I remember one night I was cleaning the toilets, and the next minute I was like, oh, my alarm's gone off, shot off, got my marigolds in my trousers, and I'm doing a Zoom podcast with Flex Lewis, Flex Wheeler, all these famous people. I'm like, and they're all going, oh, you're living the dream, you're Mr Olympia now, what are you doing? I'm looking down, I've got my marigolds hanging out, and I've got bleach all down me, and I stink. I was like, not quite living the dream. So,
do you know what, though? That's how real it is, though.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important because, again, yes, you've took on all that stuff. I remember actually the Ryan Terry British Classic at Gymshark.
Yes.
I remember I was actually there filming.
Amazing.
And that was when I met you first. Actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And cheers for remembering that, bro. And I must have definitely made
I
an
was
impression on you.
I was 3 weeks out from Olympia then.
And that's
I was
what I was
dying.
thinking, he's doing this now because you were doing the posing classes and stuff, the seminar.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you look lean as out. Obviously, your core and that was but I was looking, I was thinking, this guy's about to compete. And he's spending time here.
So I remember, Phil Heath actually stopped me because we were doing, I was running between like stalls because all of the people, all the vendors there, they were all either sponsors of mine or I was close with them and I wanted them to do well. So stupidly, I'm running between to give my time as much as I can. And I just spread myself too thin. And I was, I'd just done an interview with Kai Green on stage. And then me and Phil was doing a meet and greet. I'd not eaten, time had passed. And I started going into like a hypoglycemic shock. And I'm trying to get through it. And people were like, it sounds daft, but they were blurred to me when I was talking to them and stuff. And even Phil just stood on this chair and shouted to him because there was a big queue. He says, Ryan can't do any more. He just says, no more. And I went off to the green room. I said, like, just give me 20 minutes, give me something to eat, I'll be sound, we'll go again. And went back into the green room and Amy's, my wife's, crying her eyes. I said, look at you, look at the state of you, like, what are you doing to yourself? And I was, like, the eyes were in the back of my head, not in a good state. And that's when they said, like, you need to go, you need to get out of here. He says, because you're not going to make the Olympia, you're going to end up in a hospital. And that's when I did. Literally the day after, we booked a flight and I flew out to America, just put all this down. I was still working on it slightly, but kind of put it down. And I just did the last 3 weeks of my prep in America. And that made such a difference because I didn't have any choice other than being a bodybuilder. So I slept between my meals. I trained 2 or 3 times a day. And my body was just changing every hour. It was incredible to watch. I went in 6 pounds heavier than I ever done before. And it made me realise that when people go into training camps, a lot of people I used to compete against go into training camps for 12 weeks. I'm like, well, that's just a cop-out from real life. Yeah. But it's not. Like, it made such a difference, that 3 weeks. So I did it again. I replicated it this year, went out for 3 weeks, and again, made such a difference. So, yeah, even 10 years on, I'm still learning like what the right thing is to do.
It's crazy to hear that, Ryan, because I create content for a lot of professional boxers and athletes and stuff, and I think a lot of people look at bodybuilding as if, like, it's just a bit of a ego thing, like you're competing on stage in some trunks for a £5 trophy, and all the stuff you hear. That. But what you're putting yourself through, it really is a 7 days a week sport, 24 hours a day.
It is, without a doubt.
I feel like I know you're massively successful in everything you've achieved, but I still think you're underpaid. I mean, I don't know your financial figure, but for what you've achieved and all the rest of it, like, to pursue something, it's like, how were you supporting yourself? Because if you didn't, I know that, sponsorship deals and things will help you along the way and stuff, but not everybody's in your position. So
Agreed.
For a bodybuilder out there who's really giving it their all, they're trying to grow the socials, they just haven't got that sponsorship in, that maybe they're in prep, their heads up their arse. How do they get through that? Like, where do you draw the belief from?
That is hard, and you're right about that. Like, even, like, say, look at bodybuilders, they get 500 grand now if they win the Olympia or whatever. That's $500,000. That would allow that person to be a full-time bodybuilder all year and to provide for their family. For us, we earn 50,000. That we can live off that. That's not a bad thing for the year. But if you've got 2 kids and a wife, that's not going to sustain very long. You're not going to have a luxury life. If you're number 1 in the world and you're earning that, you're not going to provide an amazing life for your kids. It's going to be okay, but it's not going to be phenomenal. So I I get that. It is hard and things do need to change. But again, I always say stop looking for sponsorships and whatever. Outsourced income. Always look at trying to build your self-worth, because then you're worth more to them, but always try and earn your own money. So I've never been reliant on sponsorships and stuff like that. So I own properties, that sort of thing. I came from nothing. I had no income whatsoever. I was on my own from like I say, from 18. I had my own house, bought my own house at 18 from nothing. I worked hard from 16 to be able to do that. And that's always been something that I will never let anybody take away from me, is that I can go back to plumbing tomorrow if I need to. I'm not afraid to do that. So I'll always make sure my kids, my wife are provided for. So if you want to be a bodybuilder and it's hard and stuff, there's times where you're going to have to do things you don't want to do. Like William Bonac, for instance, like he was a big inspiration to me, good friend of mine, where he was sleeping in his car in order to still pursue his bodybuilding dream because he couldn't afford rent and whatever. But because he knew at one day that the time's going to change and he's going to get that #1 spot, he's going to get that sponsorship deal. He was just getting by in order to pursue his dream, and now he's very successful and his kids are in private school and he's done phenomenally well. So yeah, that's how I look at it. If you want something bad enough, you'll make it happen.
I agree, mate. I think anyone, I get it with bodybuilding, there's genetics and stuff that may play a part and help you or hinder you. But I do believe anyone can achieve what they want. I just don't see any limits at all. And that's I mean, I don't know where the hell I've gotten that from, but I've always been the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had multiple failed businesses and stuff over the years, but
same.
I finally think with what I'm doing now with the content PT, I've kind of like cracked it a little bit.
Good.
But I'm nowhere near
Amazing.
where I want to be.
Yeah.
But again, I can only look at people like yourself and be like, well, Ryan's done this. Like, he's a lad from the area, like you don't live too far from me, and it's like when I look at people like that, I'm like, right, okay, there's got to be something that you can look at and say, look, it can be done.
Yeah, but as long as you're enjoying it. So I push myself too far, and my wife hit the nail on the head. She says, like, it's like you're punishing yourself. She says, why is it that you always have to be backed into a corner in order to do well? And I never really understood that until that happened to me. So I didn't need to do this, to set on the British Championship, all this stuff at the same time. I could have stagnated it and been absolutely fine and cruised through. But I've always been someone who works well as an underdog. So that was a big challenge for me, being the current champion this past year, going in as a Mr Olympia, going in to retain his title, because I've always been the guy who's fighting to get up there, is the underdog, working in the shadows and stuff. And without knowing it, I think subconsciously, I put myself in that corner because I'd won it and whatever, or because I work better like that. I start putting all these stresses on in my life, and I don't know any other way now. So I've been really trying to work hard, especially since this Olympia, in not looking for the next projects. Like I'm very fortunate people come to me with projects and this and that and investments and what do you think to this, and normally I jump on it and I put all this pressure on me and I get through it. I scramble through it. But I'm trying, as I'm getting older, now I've got kids and a family and stuff, I'm trying to appreciate what I've got and really immerse myself in the here and now rather than looking for the next thing. Because even like with this last Olympia, some of the things that the ball was rolling already, and now, what are you doing? And the moment I was sound of mind, I got more food back in me and I was back with the kids. So I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is ludicrous. I don't need to put any more stresses on in my life. Just enjoy being Mr Olympia and enjoy with where you are in your life.
But I think it's almost like a bit of a paradox, because don't you?
You
need to be that guy to be able to achieve the things.
Yeah. Yes.
But it also comes with all that in between, and I think that's where it's very hard. I mean, I heard someone say about, I can't remember which podcast it was, but someone was talking about a billionaire and he was really stressed and he's making all this money. He's big time billionaire.
Yeah.
And he said, why didn't he just stop at like 500 mil? And it's like, what they don't realise is the guy who gets to 500 mil is the guy who also could have stopped at 10 grand.
Yes.
So you can't, if you're that way, you're that way. And I don't believe,
that's very true.
I feel like you're always an underdog, regardless of the accolades. And again, I mean that in a positive way, because why not 3 times? Okay, why not? Let's go for 5. That's the goal now. Or why not get more properties or do this? Do you get what I'm saying? So it's I look and I think the type of guy you are, as much as you want to smell the roses or kind of enjoy it and put yourself in that, immerse yourself in it more, which you should do. I also understand that that's probably not going to happen.
You probably know me better than I do then, because that's so true. I always am looking for the next thing, but I see, what's the word, like progression as a must. Like, I'm not somebody who, even in the same house I'm in, and I'm not somebody who wants a bigger house, this and that. I just need to feel progression. And like that's what competing has always done for me. It's given me something to work towards. It gives me that end goal. The only problem you've got with that is when's enough? Like, I put myself through a lot. Like, I've done this for 21 years. Like, I've ate 6 meals a day for 21. And it's a lifestyle, and I love it. But, like, when do you sit back and think, right, enough's enough? As in, do you keep going 6, 7 times or whatever? And what's it going to do to the people around you? Or is it worth your health? Like, there's a lot of things come into play when you've been doing it for so long. People keep saying to you, why do you keep doing it? Like, you've done this over 10 years. It's a lot. Like, bodybuilding's a very... subjective sport. It's a very intense sport, like say 7 days a week. You can't switch off from it. It is a lifestyle. When's it enough? I'm like, but I don't feel like that in my head. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what it is though? When you're saying, like, when people say, why do you keep doing it? The question is, it's not a why do you keep, this is what you do. Yeah. It's not a why do you keep doing it, because it's so ingrained in your character. If it wasn't bodybuilding, I guarantee it would be something else. We both know Leon, and I had a chat with Leon a while back now, and he's like, you know, Ryan, he's always been on it, you know, like even we've had nights out where he's like pissed off for meals in his car and that and all this. And I'm like, is Leon he legit? He's like, oh mate, legit, on a night out, he's still having meals, is that true?
Yeah.
If you don't know by now, I run a business called The Content PT. I create content for influencers, PTs, online coaches and fitness brands all around the world. So if you are someone who's in need for sexy content for your social media, or you really want to maintain a competitive edge in your industry, drop me a DM on Instagram.
Yeah, 100%. I never missed a meal. Even if I was on a date and we're in a cinema or anything like that, if my alarm used to go off, I would be out that door eating my meals. I'd crack a cold salmon and broccoli out next to a girl or something in a cinema if that alarm had gone off and it was time to eat.
Do you know what's crazy? Like, I get it. I do get it. You know, you've got to do it. But you would do my fucking head in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But the thing is, though, now, this was in the early days. Like, now I realise you don't need to be like that. You don't need to be as strict as that. My food, my time is around my kids and my family. Everything that fits around them. And when people say you can either be a good dad or a good body, but you can't be both, like, that's bollocks. Because as long as it is harder, don't get me wrong, because your time is around them. But I have 5 meals a day now, a bigger portion of meals. I can't get 6 in because I just don't have the time now. I've got kids, I've got other obligations. I fit around them, and I always have done. Social lives, like say with Leon, even on a Sunday when we've been out all day Saturday or on a session or whatever, on a Sunday morning, like, we'd all be sleeping, my alarm's going off, right, I'm getting up. I mean, even if I'd had a drink, I'm getting up, I need my meal. It was always a must. Like, on site, I used to take my protein shakes under the floorboards with me because I was a plumber, so be fitting all the pipes, all that kind of stuff. And if there was enough voids, I'd be the guy, the little shit, running around under the floorboards, soldering and whatever. I'd take my protein shakes under there. I'd have my meals under there. Or I'd nip back to the van, pretend I need a tool or something. I'd be in the back smashing my meal because, like, I knew that's what I needed to do at that time in order to be stepping on stage in 12 weeks' time or whatever. Yeah.
Did you ever feel silly doing that?
So no one, it's weird because I wasn't somebody, there's a lot of bodybuilders out there, and that's what gives us all a bad stigma, that they want everybody to know they're in pain. They want everybody to know they're eating out of a Tupperware, and they want everyone to know they're special. Whereas I've never been that guy. I'm the opposite. I want it to be as quick and easy where no one sees it. So, like, for instance, my son's birthday, his first birthday, I was 2 weeks out from the Arnold, and I just run to my car, quickly eat my meal, and then get to the bar. No one even knew. Everyone was just thinking you're at the toilet and stuff. So I'm not. You can do it if you need to. And like, my wife, been with me forever, but we can go out, all these kind of things. It's never affected us ever. And I'm not. Yeah, never. Like, we go out for meals because we don't drink. We're not big drinkers. We never were. So we like our food and stuff. So I can still go out and socialise. I can still have steak, jacket potato and veg. Like, you can get that in any restaurant. So when people say I can't eat that because it's not on my diet, but you can, because it's a steak, jacket potato and veg.
See, I understand with your wife. Like, I understand that she knows your mission. Like, she's going to support you. And that's amazing to have that support network. I think a lot of people probably don't have that.
Yeah.
And I know even with what I do, mate, when times get hard and I'm on the road 7 days, or I put a post on every day, and people take the mick now. It's like another day, another 500 miles, but I'm like, legit. You know what I mean? I've run that car to the bloody ground, mate.
I'm good, man.
But I think without me partner, you need the support.
Yeah.
Did it ever get to a point where your wife was like, Ryan, just chill out, let's have a pizza, man. Oh, yeah, just please.
It was never about food, no. She's never been like that, because it's never been a problem. Like, she can sit and eat a pizza. I'll have my steak and rice or at the same time, and it's never affected anything. She's never like got jealous of me eating this, or can't you just relax? When I'm in the early days, I would have never done that. But like now, I know it's not detrimental to your physique by having a pizza. It's not. So now I'm a lot more relaxed, especially we've got kids. I don't want them to see their dad obsessive over food when he's 4 years old. I don't want him to have I'll say a bad relationship, but a relationship with food at that age. I just want him to enjoy eating what he wants. Like, not to say he eats rubbish, but he doesn't need to know what calories are in food at that age. And I don't want him to look at his dad thinking, why is he eating that and we're eating this? So I am relaxed around them and stuff. But she's always been supportive in everything I've done. She travelled to America with me because that was my dream. I moved to America in 2017. She came with me. She couldn't work over there. She couldn't drive or anything like that. But she supported me over there. So I'm massively thankful for that. And that's why I nearly retired 2 years ago, for her and for the family, because we had a young one. We had another one on the way, or we just had a second one. And it was getting to a point where it was hard on her own, and I'm away. And as you're getting closer to show day, obviously you're there, but you're not, because like you're just a walking zombie, a walking corpse. And you could see it was starting to get to her, and I could see that, and that was really weighing on me quite heavily. I was like, look, she's supported you long enough now. I think you need to support her now, and that's why we sat down and made the decision to retire at that time. Because what's the point in her feeling like that? And really struggling with the kids when you're going to get a 7th place or a 6th place. That's just not who I am. Like, some people look at it and that's 7th in the world, but that's last to me. So
did it ever go the other way, where, because you're so ingrained in kind of healthy living and putting your body through the extremes as well on the other side of it, did you ever think to your wife, like, can you just eat what I'm eating for a bit, just so it's not as...
Never in a million years, no. So I was always the opposite. So she wanted to get into it, and she did get into it. When she came over to America, because she couldn't work or we didn't have time apart, we're in each other's pockets, she lived my life. So when I was cooking my meals, I'll just make the same for me, and I'll have smaller portions. But I purposely never taught her how to work out your macros, what's good, what's bad. Well, there's nothing good and bad, but what you wouldn't typically have in a bodybuilding diet, what you would, because I always wanted her to never feel guilty for eating anything. I do feel responsible. My sister, she's amazing now. My sister is a coach, like a nutrition coach, and she's a lifestyle coach, and she does phenomenally well. She works out of here. But I won't say it was a bad experience, but she wanted me to help her. She was overweight, and she was getting married, and she asked me to help her. She wasn't really into the gym, she wasn't really into fitness and stuff, but she wanted to be the best shape of her life for the wedding. And I kind of showed her the extreme ways of doing it, like a bodybuilder would, if you're 10 weeks out and you're actually 16 weeks out. So she dieted hard, she got in the best shape of her life, she looked amazing on a wedding day. But then she created this relationship with food which wasn't great. So I felt guilty for that, because I taught her that way and taught her what was good, what was deemed bad. So I always said I would never do that to anybody else going forward. She's amazing now. She's got a good relationship with food, and she teaches. But because of those experiences, she teaches others now not to be like that. And for me, I was very conscious that I didn't want Amy to ever be like. Because when I met her, I loved the fact that she'd have a 4-cheese pizza, and a pack of Pringles all day. And yeah, it's not great nutrition, I wouldn't advise that, but she was just blissfully unaware and just happy with life. And I was like, that's amazing. If that makes you happy, crack on. Do you know what I mean?
Was there ever a point where you've wanted to just throw the towel in and be like, do you know what, like, I'm just sick of this diet and stuff and that now?
Not so much because of the diet, because I've always enjoyed my diet. I've always made sure, I'm not a bodybuilder who has chicken and rice 5 times a day. I've always had, all my meals are different throughout the day, bar one meal. So, for instance, I'll have like oats in the morning with almonds, blueberries, whey protein. So a good mix of essential fats, complex carbs, bioavailable proteins. And then I'd go on to like a chicken meal, a turkey meal. Then I'd have salmon, I'd have steak, eggs, each different meal. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good, varied, balanced diet. So I've always enjoyed it. So I never really craved anything off diet. I only ever craved more of something if I'm dieting and I'm hungry. I never look at when I'm dieting down and think, oh, I'd love a burger, because I don't typically have that all year anyway. So I don't miss it. So I just typically crave more of what I'm eating at the time. There has been times where I've wanted to pack in for other reasons though, because I've had 3 hip surgeries now, which people don't see that side of. And it's funny because I've got so many scars and whatever from the 10 years of competing at the Olympia, from 20 years of training, which people don't see that when they start following me since you become Mr Olympia. But I'm in pain every day with my hip, like every day, like
really?
Immense pain. Yeah, I've had the best surgeons from all over Europe work on it, and it's just something I've got to bear with now. Some days it's okay, some days it's not. But yeah, there's times like that when I was on crutches. I remember in 2018, I was on crutches. And at the time, I was one of the favourites to win. I was second in the world, that sort of thing. And then I was the Arnold Classic champion. And Brandon Hendrickson, obviously Brandon was the guy behind me. I was always like second and first. He was always third and fourth. And it was the year he won it, and I was on crutches. So I'd got small, and I was watching the guy who I've always beaten get bigger, better, then win the Olympia. And I was on catch-up ever since. And that was one of my biggest driving force. Again, underdog. I was backed up against the wall. This guy's I've always beaten this guy now. He's miles ahead of me. So that was someone I was chasing for years. But there were times like that when I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm in so much pain. Why am I doing this? It's got to be an easier way.
Is that a direct correlation to the trainer?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I slipped disc in my lower back when I was younger. I used to train with super heavyweights. I trained with Dave Titterton. He was 3 times Mr Universe in Class 1, so he was a big old boy. 15 years I trained with people like that. So trying to ego lift and trying to keep with those guys affected me massively. It actually went when I was in Conor McGregor's fight team in the island. Don't ask me why. Stupidity. I was like 6 weeks out from the Olympia. They invited me over to in his camp. I did this, Owen Roddy, his striking coach, invited me to one of his classes. Male ego came into it, started getting a bit carried away. And as I'm kicking, I was that exhausted because I was 6 weeks out. I shouldn't have been doing that. But again, the competitive side of me, they put me with an ex-jiu-jitsu champion turned bodybuilder. So he had the experience, but he had the same weight as me. He was trying to teach me a lesson. I didn't like that. I was trying to obviously hold my own. And it came out the socket, came back in, and it severed my labrum. So that was the hardest 6 weeks of prep I've ever done because I didn't dare tell anybody because my coach at the time, my family were saying, pure stupidity going over there. Why are you doing that 6 weeks out? I was like, I'll be okay. So I didn't want to tell them what I'd just done. And I remember couldn't train abs because I couldn't crunch my hips. Couldn't train legs for 6 weeks. So that was a big expenditure. So I had to adapt my training very quickly. And that's when I learned isotension. So every morning, because I couldn't train abs, I used to stand in the mirror for 30 minutes just crunching my abs as hard as I could. Inhaling, exhaling, and just crunching as hard as I could for 30 minutes every day. And I was like, and I remember like talking to myself in the mirror like ludicrous, psycho, just going, it's your own stupid fault. You've got to do this now.
I bet you weren't saying it that nice though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a few more swear words in it, but that was my mindset at the time. It was just like, well, it's your own stupid fault. Get on with it. So
I think that again, it's that kind of, it's almost like the self-belief. Know you can do it, delusional. Yeah. I don't know what to call it, but like when you're in with that lad, when you're trying to hold your own, of course you're gonna get spanked by someone like that. You're gonna, aren't you? But
exactly.
Because I'm very much the same, and it's like, who do I think I am thinking that? Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's that I think that's what a winner is.
Yeah.
That whether you actually win, I think that's a winner. Someone
mindset.
Who lives like that.
Yeah.
The darkest times. Is there a particular time, Ryan, when you were like, this is really bad, like the darkest place you've been in through this?
So last January, it's going to be quite hard to talk about it because it's still quite raw, but so I was somebody who, and it's really, really bad of me to say this, but you know when people talk about mental health and having like panic attacks and all these things, I always used to think, shut up, get your big boy pants on and get on with it. There's a lot more worse people off in the world. Like that was always my attitude towards it. I would never ever talk like that ever again now because I went through something I just couldn't control. I've always been able to control my narrative in anything I do. I'm always like, no, I'm Mr. Independent. I can sort myself out, put my big boy pants on and get on with things. I've always done that. Whereas this time, I was having blackouts. I was having real bad panic attacks. Like I was shaking, sweating, even to the point where one evening I was trying to finish this place. It was really late, and I'd actually told my wife to take the kids to her parents just for a couple of days because I didn't know what was going off and I didn't want them to see me in this state. And this is when I was Mr. Olympia as well. When you think about it, like see that side of it. Social media is a highlight reel in it. So I was hiding all this behind, and I was just trying to keep my head above water. But I remember sending them off, and I was down here till, I don't know what time it was really late. And I was going back, and I just started blacking out. And I'm driving, I'm sweating, and I just, as I opened my front door, blacked out. And then I woke up. I don't know how long I was there for, but I was in my porch with my dog on top of me, and I was just like, this is not good. Like, my health is really bad. And obviously you talk about how I inspire you, and you've always followed my journey. These are the things you don't show, and I'm not normally that person, so I would never. I've never spoke about this before, but yeah, that was a real dark time for at least January, February, March of last year. And do you know what kind of got me out of it was being backed into a corner 16 weeks out from the Olympia. Like, shit, I've not trained all year. I'm going up against the best, and I'm providing for my family. So again, I create this narrative in my head, like, your family are dependent on you. You need to win this title. You've got 16 weeks. You're not where you should be. Your body composition looks like a sack of shit because you've not really done anything all year. It's time to work. It's time to graft. And that kind of just switched me out of this person I was.
It's like that chimp on your shoulder, isn't it? Just constantly. It's almost like it's your what breaks you down is also what saves you as well. Yeah, exactly. What was it? Why did you black out?
I don't know. I really don't know. I spoke to somebody and I was talking to people about it, but they were saying it was severe anxiety attacks. That's what they put it down to. They were just saying because you're putting that much pressure on yourself and you couldn't handle it, and you're not somebody who doesn't, that your body was finally saying it needs a rest. And it was like, for 6 months living on 3-4 hours sleep and doing 18-hour days of what I was doing at the time was just madness. And if I tried to do that again now, I, hand on heart, would never be able to do that again. Like, at the time, it was a sink or swim, was it? Yeah, sink or swim. So that was kind of the attitude I have. But looking back, I don't know how I did it. And yeah, it was just my body telling me, you need to step back, you need to slow down, or we're going to slow you down. I think that's kind of what it was.
Honestly, I really appreciate you telling us that, mate, because again, I think there will be a lot of people around the world who are inspired and look up to people like yourself. And the more people can talk about them type of things, it's real. It's what happens. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but we're taught not to. I was taught not to. Like I said, my brother was 2 years older than me. He was like, we didn't have a dad growing up really, like a big stint of our life. It was just my mum raised us. And my brother, he went in the army at 16, but he was a real tough like guy. And he was like the head of the house. So I always looked up to him. And when he left, it was like, shit, now I have to fill those shoes. And I wasn't told to do that, but it kind of, that was my time to step into it. So it was like, now you don't be a little bitch. You've got to get on with things, and you don't moan about things. And that's kind of how I was raised. So yeah, last year was hard.
No, again, I really appreciate that, mate. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. And, you just brought back, I felt emotional listening to you there.
Sorry, I'll get a bit emotional there.
Because it kind of brought back memories, like when I started Content PT, right? Again, a lot of people just see you're a lad with a camera who films bodybuilders, right? But what they don't see is when I worked in construction before this, and I had different businesses over the years. I always wanted to do it, but you didn't know what business to get into. I've used the camera since I was 19. I used to film musicians and stuff, but I could never monetize it. That's the truth. And I remember this one time I came back from work, and I was the same. I lost a best friend to suicide and things years ago, and nothing. I mean, it affected us, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I can kind of get on with stuff. I'm quite tough in that sense. Yeah. And I thought, there's nothing I can't really handle. And I remember coming back from work, and I don't know if you ever felt it, mate, but I had a lump in my throat, and it was like, and I'm just flooding with tears, and I'm thinking, why the fuck am I crying? I'm like, I don't hate my job. Don't get me wrong, it's not where my passion is, but I was like, I bought my first property, like them things, and I was like, this is so weird. And I rang our lass at the time, well, when me lass, I'm saying at the time, I rang her and I was like, you're gonna have to come home from work here. She's like, what's the matter? I was like, you need to just get back. I was like, I'm not in a good way. It's weird.
So that happened, That's
and I'm just bawling, and I'm like, and I don't know why. And then I specifically remember this, and this is what's so crazy. We went to a local sort of eatery down the road later on that night, and she said, I want you to write down everything you do with your life, and you're gonna have to commit to this. And I always knew. I wrote things like barber, tattooist, videographer, but what I did know, they were all some kind of creative thing.
Yeah.
I've always liked the gym, and I've always liked that type of things. I mean, I'm the type of guy who I don't like to socialise. Headphones on, even with no music, mate.
Yeah.
I just want to do my own thing, and it's more to just be out of the mix than actually to train. And that was something that helped us. So I thought, okay, if I can marry something up in that environment, and then I knew quite a few people in fitness, but I remember that you know, the point I'm trying to make is I feel like a lot of people will see someone like yourself or whoever it may be in, right, he's Mr Olympia. But for me, certainly, it's not a case of I want to be a videographer. It was I need to do something for myself.
For yourself, yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It could be a gardener. It doesn't matter. But if it's for me, that's when I'm happy. And it's so weird how, again, this is why I do the podcast, because I get so much satisfaction. And it's selfish, really. Like, I'll learn about myself by speaking to yourself. And whenever am I going to have these conversations with people who've achieved great things than having a podcast? And this is just a platform we can do it on now. So
do you feel fulfilled now by obviously doing
Massively.
your podcast? Yeah, amazing.
Massively, mate.
But that's the same with me with competing. So people say, why do you still do it 10 years on? Because I love it. I love what I do. And it maybe does come from a negative standpoint. Like I say, it all started because I was very self-conscious of the way I look. And I probably train and I put my body put my body through the way I do because I want to feel better in myself. And if that makes me feel better, I'll carry on doing it. It's only when like other factors come in, like kids and that sort of thing, if it starts to affect them, that's when things change. So I've always said to my wife, look, if it does become a problem with the kids and then I will stop, because they are the most important thing for me. My kids are my everything. So we're doing phenomenally well. We're very open now, because I was somebody who was closed book. I was very like, say, put your big boy pants on, get on with it. Whereas now, I'm very much like, look, I'm not in a great space here. Just give me 5 or whatever, or, you know, that sort of. And the more transparency we've had, it's just worked. And that's why the last Olympia, she came out with me. Obviously, I didn't know what she was going to say. I didn't know whether she was going to say, look, can we call it a day now? You've achieved everything you set out to achieve. Because she was there when I set my vision board 10 years ago. Every title on that board, everything I wanted to achieve, I'd achieved when I won that title. So it was all the different titles in the IFBB. It was being financially more stable. It was an avenue into America, because I always loved America. All these things. My first ever one was the first ever pro from the UK. That was my first start. So I achieved everything I achieved. So I assumed it was going to be a hard conversation. Say, right, what's the next steps? What do we do after competing? But she turned around to me and she looked and had a face on the side of this hotel in Vegas, and it was phenomenal, because it was the 60th Olympia. They went all out, and because I was a current Mr Olympia, I was very fortunate to be the face of it. And she just went, you can't give this up. You can see you're alive out here. You're a different person when you're in the bodybuilding community, when you're immersed in it. She says, you're the person I fell in love with, so just keep doing what you're doing. So that kind of gave me the green light. I was like, brilliant, I'm going to be 10 times Mr Olympia.
How does it work in terms of when you won Mr or the second time, Ryan, like because obviously status grows, following grows, all the, which I like to call the bullshit stuff in life.
Yeah.
When them things kind of grow, like, how much does actually change? Do you get granted a shitload of opportunities? Are people constantly stopping you in the street? Is it just you get a bit more respect in gyms? How does it actually change?
So there are more opportunities, because obviously you're number one in that sport. So a lot of promoters, sponsors, they want you to head up their brands or be at their shows and stuff. So there are more opportunities to travel, and obviously financially that helps. You are of more value to sponsors, which you can secure longer deals, which is, for me, has always been important, because I want longevity for the sake of my family and whatever. I want to know they're secured for the next 2 years. So that always helped. But I think when it comes to like status, I think because I've been in it for so long, I've been in it for 10 years, like, people know me by now, so that never really made a big difference. You see a big influx. I got about 80,000 new following from winning my first Olympia on that within 24 hours. So it massively shoots up, but it doesn't. What's the word? It doesn't change you from day to day, or it doesn't change me from day to day. I did a lot of travelling with my sponsors before all this, so it just kind of fires that back up. You're relevant again, but again, because you're not competing all year as well, it's you're really relevant to start with, and then you kind of fade off, because you're in a t-shirt, a hoodie covered up, you're not showing the goods off, and you're not competing, so you're not in the limelight. So that works perfect for me, if I'm honest. I'm not someone who needs the limelight 365 days a year. So
what made you? I know I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. I've started it now. What made you keep going back and back for the Mr. O?
Because I wasn't number one yet. So that was one of the biggest questions people used to ask me all the time. Why do you keep doing this? Like, because I knew I'd be number one at some stage in my career. Whether it was going to be 10 years, whether it was going to be 5 years, there was just something telling me you are worthy of being number one. Even though I never went round and was confident, cocky about it. This is what I said to you earlier on. It's like there was just something telling me, yeah, you're worthy of being number one. Like, you can do this. And it was because I was, again, when I first did, in 2015, did my first Olympia, you look on the board, there's Ryan Terry UK, there's 41 other guys, all American. So it was very heavy American. There was no one from Europe at that time. And I held that for like 4 or 5 years before any other UK guy got qualified. I think it was Ryan John Baptiste, about 4 years on. And then after that, it's growing, and you can see there's a lot more diversity now. There's a lot of Brazilians there. There's a lot more Europeans there. So I was always the guy, like, just trying to prove everyone wrong. Everyone's like, yeah, but you're not American, so you're not going to win. I was like, no, I am. It's just going to take some time. I didn't expect it to take 10 years, but I just kept thinking, if I stay in my lane and just keep working hard, there's going to be the opportunity at some point to win.
This is why I'm buzzing, the fact that you see, because like everything would tell the average Joe they're not looking for you.
Yeah,
that's your luck, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
100%.
that. It's almost. It's back to that, isn't it? It's like, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, and this is how much I relate to that kind of perseverance, if you like. This is a mad one. So you clearly won't remember it because you didn't remember Gymshark.
Sorry.
It's gonna stick with us that.
Not gonna let that one go.
But I was in Dubai filming, and I did a video with you.
Did you really? Yeah, of course, I remember that. Yeah,
it's class, wasn't it? No, but so I remember that then, and I was filming with Alex, my friend at the time, and he was doing a video with Mike Thurston and stuff, and you were in Trim Beach Club gym doing a video with Mike. Actually.
Yes, yeah.
And the video's on YouTube, and I'm in the video as well. And I remember thinking in my head, I thought, one day I would love to just take a few shots of him. And obviously I've been on campaigns when you've been there and stuff now. And it just goes to show, like, the more, it's almost like, I wouldn't say laser focus, but it's more like if you just keep going towards that thing, there's a good...
Law of attraction. Do you follow anything
massively,
like that? Yeah.
Massively.
So I was somebody who was quite pessimistic. I don't know why. I don't know if it was the upbringing we had, but all three of my brother and my sister, all quite glass always half empty, that type of attitude. But there was something with the law of attraction I really got into, really got into it. Obviously, The Secret, that sort of thing. And at the time, I remember I was in a bad place. So this was before competing in bodybuilding. So I'm going to go way back when here. And this was in 2010, so I don't know if anybody recalls any of this. This is quite embarrassing, but you could probably find it somewhere. But I slipped my disc in my back, so I was in a bit of a bad way. Recession had hit, and I'd just lost my job. And I got a house with a mortgage at 18, and I looked like I was going to lose it. I was halfway through renovating it, and at the time, I just split with my girlfriend. We'd been together 5 years. We bought the house together. It was a real rough little time of my life. And I remember I was watching in a muscle and fitness magazine. I was bedbound because I was in a bad way. My back was like, strapped up, and we said we were going to have to operate. And I remember looking at this book, and it was my mum introduced me to the law of attraction and The Secret. So, but I was looking in muscle and fitness, and there was a guy called Bruno Kettles. Remember like it was yesterday. Turn this page, and he looked so smart. He's from Bolivia, and he was Mr. Bolivia at the time. But he had this suit on with a sash, Mr. International sash, and he was in this big throne. And I started reading his story, and he's from like the favelas, obviously that's Brazil, but he was in like the, living on the streets and whatever, and then he wins this title, Mr. Bolivia. He goes to Mr. International, he ends up winning Mr. Bolivia, and he travels the world now. He's got an apartment in Singapore. He travels around as a guest speaker, and it's just phenomenal, his story. Very well, done well for himself. I just remember thinking, I want to do that. Like, even though I was still working on site, I had no avenue to be this guy. And he won it in Indonesia. So we flew to Indonesia, and he won it. And he did this 3-week training camp where you compete against other guys. I was like, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And I kept questioning it. I was focused on it. I dreamed about it that night. And I was like, so focused on it, but then forgot about it. 6 months later, I'm in Pineapple Studios, competing for Mr Great Britain. Don't know how that happened. That came from a DFS advert on TV. Weird how it transpired. And then literally within 4 months of me seeing that picture, I'm on a plane to Indonesia. I'm competing against 41 other guys. Bear in mind, these guys are all like Calvin Klein models, like Emperor Armani. You got, Mr Australia, Mr France, all like Mr Italy. Can imagine what they look like. They were just phenomenal. And we were in Bandung, fighting in the rainforest, like learning how to do their karate, living off the wilderness. We were fighting on the beaches, like doing all these different swim challenges. And I ended up winning Mr Great Britain, Mr International, Mr World. And literally 6 months on, I've got that same suit on, custom-made suit, the sash, and I'm sat in that throne. I won an apartment in Singapore. And I was just like, from that day on, I was like, what the hell? Like, I was 6 months ago, I was working on site. And I'm like, how has that happened?
That's
and
mental.
Yeah, I travelled the world for a year. It was phenomenal. I went to every part of the world, like the Philippines, just everywhere, as a guest judge or a guest appearance. And that's kind of what got me into being sponsored by USN. And then I was doing a lot in Asia at that time, but I was starting to grow physically. I was getting bigger because I was training every day. They wanted me smaller for the Asia market, so I had to decide, do I stay in like commercial modelling and that catwalk modelling over there, even though I'm short, or do I follow my pursuit of my dream, which is training, fitness? So I went down the fitness route, and obviously we're here today. But when I decided to compete in 2013, I wrote a vision board because of that. I put it inside my wardrobe where I have all my tablets in the morning. So every time I opened up and got my tablets out, I could see these key points. And they were all points by 2013 I'd achieved, and it was unbelievable. So yeah, I really do, mind blowing.
That is
honestly
absolutely crazy. How important, Ryan, is social media in bodybuilding? And the reason I want to ask that, but I also want to caveat that with, do the judges look at that?
So they say not, because obviously it's about what they see on stage. And I'd like to believe that's the case, because that's what bodybuilding should be, is what you look like directly on the day. But I think there's an element of serving your time, or being seen to be promoting, or being, I say immersed a lot on this podcast, but immersed in the IFBB Pro League or in the federations, and being seen to be supporting them as well. So I'm not saying that's going to make a huge difference, but I'm saying that's kind of the way people look at it, where you've got to, I won't say serve your time, because that does sound quite drastic, but it means, just making sure you're supporting what you're doing as well. You're not just a one-hit wonder. You're not just going to turn up, take a title, and then disappear for 364 days a year.
Because it's a business, isn't it?
Yes.
So they've got a kind of look at that
so there is
as well.
that, but they want you to want to be there, and they want you to be there all year and stuff. So I think there's an element of that. Social media, I don't know. I'd like to say not, but I don't know, because social media is such a powerful tool now, and you've just said it's a business. So I don't know if that does play into it, but I'd like to think not, because for me, like, I didn't have any big backing at the time, like me going through the ranks and stuff. And when I turned pro, I didn't have a social media presence. I didn't have anything. And I still managed to get to where I was. And although it's more and more apparent now, and it's more popular now because social media is huge, it was still big back then when I did it in like 10 years ago. It was still the 50th Olympia. I remember going to the 50th Olympia. It's huge. But people don't see it as like they see it now, because it's more available on social media and stuff. But I managed to get up there against the odds without it. So I'd like to think not. I'm going to say not.
From an online coaching perspective, do you think people should be consistent on social media and putting out daily content?
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm not a massive fan. I know it sounds bad. I'm not a massive fan of social media, just because I'm not from that era. Even though I'm only 36, I'm just not from it, because I got into bodybuilding for the love of competing and for the competitive side of it. I didn't get in it for the career and to be popular on social media. But I've realised very quickly social media is a huge tool, and it's very important to socials. And if you want to make it a career, you have to have a good social presence. And like for me, for instance, like this Black Friday thing at the minute, because you have to push for sponsors and you have to do these obligations, you can see your engagement just like shoots down every day. If you're not posting every day and you're not on it constantly, you're going to lose being in the forefront of everyone, because there's somebody else who wants to do that, who wants to be in front of a camera every day. So yeah, I think it's very important nowadays.
Do you ever wonder about the future in terms of your mindset? And I'm from Sunderland, and I know I've been in pretty much every gym down the country, mate, to be fair, but I look at some of the old bodybuilders, the owners and stuff, and I think, they've all got all the photos on the wall and stuff, and it's like a pride thing, and I get it, they've achieved a lot and they've looked a certain way. But the other side, I think, are they a little bit gutted that they're not that guy now? Because you can't be that size, especially open bodybuilding and stuff. It's a different level. Do you ever look and think, there's going to be a day where I'm not that guy, I'm not in the shape I'm in? I mean, you'll always be in good shape, but do you ever regret that? Because sometimes that's what I think of when I look at bodybuilders who've achieved stuff. I think it must be so hard. It'd be like a champion boxer who's now at home on the sofa watching boxing.
Yeah. So I speak to a lot of ex-professional, even in rugby. I used to be good friends with a lot of the rugby South African team and stuff, because I was with USN, who were a big sponsors over there, and they all said the same. So my current athlete manager, Jerome for My Protein, he was played for France. He was a good rugby player as well. So all these people you talk to who have had to retire, they all struggle with it, really struggle with mentally. They have to try and find something to fill that void. That's something I haven't found yet. Me and Ross Edgley spoke in depth. We actually stayed up to the early hours one morning and talking about this, because he has the same mindset as me. He kind of punishes himself. These type of ludicrous challenges he does, it's punishing himself. But I said to him, but what are you going to do when you can't do that? And for me, the same is my wife's worried about it. So how are you going to fill that competitive void when you know it's over? And that's something I'm still working on at the minute, because I thought, well, let's fill this mindset or this headspace with more businesses. So then you put it into the business aspect of things, and it didn't do anything. I set up 5 businesses in lockdown, and I went to town on trying to fill this void, and it just doesn't satisfy that competitive side of me. So that is something I am going to have to deal with, and hopefully not for a few more years yet, because I've still got some life left in me, but there is going to be a point where I need to really focus on that side of things. Because you look at bodybuilders who they can't let it go, and like I say, they look at that and then they step back on stage in over 50s or whatever, because they need to do it, and I just don't want to be that guy. Because
you know what I think? I think the way to kind of combat that would be to almost embrace the mindset of, I was a bodybuilder for 20 years. I achieved great things, but now I run properties all this. I mean, you've definitely got to replace it with something, but I think to make peace with, I did this, I put everything into it, and I achieved greatness. Yeah,
the one good thing, which I'm so glad I did, because we'd be talking so different now, but because I achieved the last thing on my list, which was the Olympia, my career resume, which I started, 10 years ago, if I'd not completed that would have forever been in the back of my head. What if the Mr Olympia never did? People were calling me Flex Wheeler at one point, as in joking about the Mr Olympia who never was. And I was I just couldn't. And I remember saying to Amy, each year I was placing 3rd or 4th and whatever. I was it's not going to happen, babe. I actually started to question it, and that would have been a real struggle for me to retire or to end my bodybuilding part of my life with not achieving everything I set out to. And it was weird, because when I won the first Olympia, all that I focused on, vision board, all that kind of, was the Superstar Seminar. I went to it every year, which was on the Sunday, and it's basically all the champions of each division do a seminar. And I always just looked at them and thought, one day I'm going to be on there, as a Mr Olympia. And I remember the last year when I won it for the first time, it was the first interview I wasn't nervous, or I didn't feel like I had to say something in the right manner, or project it in a certain way, because I was no, I've achieved everything I needed to achieve now. And that's not me I just mean as in I didn't feel like I had to be somebody else or had to watch what I say. I was kind of life's complete.
And it's so
I'm
funny,
completed.
like having this conversation with you, because when I watched your journey, it went through my head, I'm not going to lie, he's not going to win it. I know.
No, but that's the close people around me.
He's just not going to be the guy we want him to be.
Unfortunately,
But then when you did it, and then the second time,
yeah.
So the final question I've got for you, Ryan. Is there going to be a 3-time?
Yeah, there's got to be. Yeah, I'm not done yet. And like I say, the moment I stop enjoying it, or it becomes a chore to get up and do my cardio, to do my recovery sweets and all that kind of stuff, then that's when I'll hang my board shorts up. But for now, whilst ever I'm enjoying it, and like I say, anything past this point is a bonus for me. I'm enjoying the ride now. I was determined this last Olympia to just enjoy every moment of it. I've completed what I set out to complete, so anything above that is a plus.
The problem you're going to get is, though, if you manage to pull this off, 4's in distance then, and then
it's like 5, innit? Yeah. There is that, I must admit, yeah. Me and my wife have put a number on, I'm not going to say that because that is between me and her. But, yeah, I definitely want to achieve that. I'm just going to say one other thing, though, which, again, this is a thing what drives me. So I always look for something to give me that fire. So even if someone's made a comment or something like that, I don't necessarily respond to it or I don't show any emotion towards it, but it literally fires me up so hard. And last year, or the last Olympia, I was exactly where I wanted to be, right up to the final few days. Well, I'd say the final 2 days of the Olympia. So I was nowhere near where I wanted to be on that stage. I was probably about 85, 90%. But yeah, I was really happy with where I was all the way into it. And did a few things. Because it was the first year, last year, the weight cap came into it. I prepped myself, so I haven't got a coach. I've done that for years now. So I was in realms I've never had to deal with before, where I had to be under a certain weight. I've always been the smallest guy on stage, so it didn't matter what my weight was. So I was obsessed with my weight, and I got to a point where I was struggling to get under it. But anyway, we managed it. On the day, I managed to get to 202 pounds, which I needed to be on stage. But yeah, I did things that I didn't really know if that was the right thing to do or whatever, and it kind of messed my stomach up because I had 2 days after that to fill up, so I kind of started eating a lot more food. Never had to do that before, and I just really struggling with my stomach. But I was like, and you see it if you look back on my YouTube videos, the last 2 Olympia prep series of the last Olympia, you'll see that I'm constantly making excuses like, oh, I'm not tensing now, but, oh, I'm a bit swollen, I've just eaten. Didn't really understand what that was at the time, but when I stepped on backstage, when I'm pumping up, as I'm hitting poses, my stomach was swelling, and I could crunch, but not as easy as I normally do. And for someone who does 8 weeks of ice tension every day, that's normally my strongest point, my midsection. That's kind of what helped me in my career, was my midsection. So to really struggle with that on stage was really bothering me. But I managed to get into them, and I got straight first, and I won. But everybody was talking about Ali Bilal, who came second to me, saying about his midsection, how he came very close to me, like he was better in his midsection and whatnot. And I can't tell you how much that's bothered me, like to the point where I've had dreams about it.
Really?
And stuff like, yeah, because I was like, it's nice to know I got straight first at 90%, but at the same time I was like, they think he's got a better midsection than me, and it's like really fired me up like you wouldn't believe. Like hitting abs every day now. No, I'm not hitting abs every day, but that's already ignited me, and I'm chomping at the bit to get started. Even though I'm still in like a recovery phase, a health phase at the minute, I'm still like, right, that's what this third title is going to be about. It's just to put everyone to bed, because it was hard in the first Olympia. Everyone's behind me. Everybody's like, he's going to do, like, he's done it. This amazing story, and everyone's. The second one was like, yeah, not shoot me down, but because I was number one, they wanted me to lose. Some people wanted me to lose, and I was like, right, that's the fuel I need for this third one now. So that's kind of what I've been like churning up in my head.
I've got to ask you one more question. I always do this and see him looking and thinking, no, you said that was the last one. But
all right, yeah.
There's one more. Do you think out of both of them Olympia titles, do you think you could have did less and won? I know you're still going to put everything into it, but do you think, actually, do you know what, I didn't probably need to work that hard?
What would I say? I prep myself, so I am accountable to myself. And the people I used to work, so I've worked with one guy in the past, Ken Roscoe, he's an amazing guy, but he was always a second pair of eyes for me. But he always used to counteract what I'd say, but me not knowing. So he knew I would do everything behind his back. So I always used to do way too much, over dieted. I'd always drop, I don't need carbs in that meal, or I'll run for an extra half an hour, or I should be walking but I'll be sprinting. He always used to put my food up and stuff because he knew what I was doing. So I've always somebody who's overworked way more than should, probably sacrificed more muscle tissue. I could have probably been bigger, but I've always been obsessed, like I say. Maybe it comes from that place of having body issues, that I wanted to be the most shredded, most peeled on stage, because I would never be the biggest on stage. I'm not genetically gifted to have those like round, thick muscle bellies. So I always played into my strengths, which was my condition. And because I've trained my body like that for 20 years, I need to do that. You can see when I'm half-arsed in a session, or you can see if I've had a lax few days on my cardio, because the body doesn't respond like it used to, or it doesn't respond like it should. So I literally go probably too hard. Yeah, I'd say. So yeah, there's probably, if I had more experience from a coach's perspective, or if I could trust someone fully to like take that side of things and say, just trust the process. I can't. I've never, because I fit everything around my family, my kids, a coach would say, that's ludicrous what you're doing. Like, you need to eat your meals when I tell you to eat your meals. You need to have this tablet at this time. You need to, whereas I can't. I'm quite a sporadic guy. Like, although I'm structured in bodybuilding, I'm very sporadic in my life. Like my work, my businesses, they fit around my sporadic lifestyle of my kids. So to then, yeah.
Because that in itself, it shows you've kind of broke the mold.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it as, I mean, you are regimented, but not what you could be.
100%.
So in a way, I mean, to answer the question, really, you probably have done less than what you could have. You could have done more. You probably could have.
Yeah.
You probably could have. There's probably beats that you missed.
Maybe, but to the point where I've never missed a meal, even if it's more or less. I've never cheated. I can hand on heart say I've never ever cheated on any diet I've ever done in 20 odd years of doing diets. I've never missed a beat in that respect. I've never missed a cardio session. I've never, like, do you know, those type of things. But if you think by me eating at 10 a.m. and 12:30 bang on would have given me an extra 1%, then I might have missed a beat then. But I've never missed in a 24-hour window what I needed to do in a prep, if you know what I mean. Like, even with my wife, when we was in COVID, she was obviously in a ward, pregnancy ward. They let me in, but I was running up and down the fire exit to do my cardio. There was no chance I was missing cardio. I had someone on a moped used to come up to the window and drop my food off because I was not missing my meals. There was nothing I missed, honestly.
Are you taking the piss?
No, swear to God.
So you were going up and down the
I was going up and down the fire exits, yeah.
Was anyone saying, like, what you're doing?
No. Because the thing is, no one... It was what a weird life, period of life we lived in. But yeah, everyone kept myself to myself, and I became so friendly with the security guards. They kind of recognised you and stuff like that, so they were a bit more lenient with you and stuff. But yeah, the fire exits and stuff, yeah.
It would have just looked like it was a bloke didn't know what floor he was on.
Yeah, but no one come up the fire exit, so I was sound. But I remember the guy on the moped, like, security guards used to like just nod to him and stuff. He was on his moped. It was a Crunch, big shout out to them, like a fast food chain, but they all clean food. But because they knew what I was going through and they were just down the road, and I couldn't leave once I was in the hospital, they'd come and drop off through the window my meals and whatever. Yeah, I still had my weighing scales. Obviously, I never trusted them 100%. I had to measure and weigh out myself. But yeah, never missed a beat in that respect.
Ryan Terry, let's see you win a third.
Let's do this.
And thank you so much for being the guest, the 100th.
Yeah, no, I feel honoured for that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
No problem.
So you've made it to the end of this one. You're brave. But if you like this episode and you want to see more like this, click here and watch it.